We begin the news at this hour in West Africa, where President Bola Tinubu has announced the immediate reopening of Nigeria's land and air borders with the Republic of Niger, along with the lifting of other sanctions imposed on the country. The decision follows the directives of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government made during an extraordinary summit held in Abuja on February 24, 2024. At the summit, ECOWAS leaders collectively agreed to lift economic sanctions against several West African nations, including the Republic of Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. Additionally, President Tinubu also authorized the lifting of financial and economic sanctions against the Republic of Guinea, signaling a broader effort towards regional cooperation and normalization of relations. The decision is expected to foster improved diplomatic ties and facilitate economic activities between Nigeria and its neighboring countries, promoting stability and prosperity in the West African region. And now to discuss this with me, I am joined by a public affairs analyst, Francis Chilaka. Thank you so much, Mr. Francis Chilaka, for joining us on the news.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, with the reopening of Nigeria's land and air borders with Niger Republic and the lifting of other sanctions, it's been said that ECOWAS eventually had to eat the humble pie, even as the measures did not have any impact nor force Niger to back down. So what do you think of this assertion?
Well, it simply shows you that the countries that make up ECOWAS have not benefited from it. ECOWAS really has nothing to offer for its member states, because if you look at the whole thing that played out, you also find out that there's a lot of corrupt leaders within the ECOWAS itself, and ECOWAS is not doing something about it. So yes, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, they've moved on, and I give kudos to them. So opening the borders is just medicine after death. I mean, that's the way I see it.
You said they've moved on, and you seem to have thrown your weight behind that. But then we see that the rescinding of the decision is considered, well, for some people, a little too late, though some people have actually commended it. Now, we see a Niger that has gone on to form a confederation with Burkina Faso and Mali. Don't you think it might just be expedient or wise at this point for Niger to, of course, alongside these other countries, consider their stance and come back home?
When you say come back home, what is there for them to benefit? I mean, we should ask ourselves in Africa, what has ECOWAS really done for its member states? What has it done? I mean, look at ECOWAS. We don't even have a unified currency to start with. You know, we don't have anything that binds us together other than the fact that, okay, you know, borders open and borders closed. But if you look at the border you've opened with Niger, what does Nigeria start to benefit? The import of, the export of Nigeria to Niger is almost like 6%, 6-7%. That's what we do. But for them, they are doing close to 16 to 20%. So who's benefiting more? So closing the border in the first place and putting sanctions was too much. Well, they did it so much in a hurry. They didn't consult and all of that. So I believe that it's time the African countries begin to think Africa, more of Africa, more of leadership in Africa, more of getting things done the African way. We need to open our eyes to that, and I believe that that's what Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali are trying to do.
Well, you seem to have given hard knocks on the regional bloc, but then in a similar climb, looking at the magnitude and the influence such a bloc should have in West Africa, what are the things you believe or you think should form the basis of the regional bloc? What are your expectations that you feel they have not met? We are looking at a regional bloc that should, manage the economic stance or position or potential of this region, but we've not seen that. Even these countries have accused the regional bloc of not protecting its interest politically and in otherwise. What is missing looking at ECOWAS as a body?
The first thing that is missing in ECOWAS is leadership. They don't have the right kind of leadership. They have a lot of member states there whose presidents have decided to stay for life. I think that when you talk about economic, you should also talk about the politics. There should be clear political lines for members. I mean, if election in a member state is considered to be fraught with violence and all of that, ECOWAS should stand its ground to tell the country that is involved to do the right thing. If you are a president and if your constitution says 4 years, 8 years, you do not have a right as a member state to look into your constitution to make it open for you to recontest. So these are things that ECOWAS should look at. And ECOWAS should look more of the African way of doing things. How do they help African nations to survive, in terms of insecurity, in terms of food and all of that. So ECOWAS has a lot to do. And ECOWAS is not really doing anything. It's just there on paper. We just hear ECOWAS. But what are the states, what are the countries making up ECOWAS? What will they say that they're benefiting? So I think everyone is looking at, right now, everybody is looking at what do I stand to benefit, in a body like ECOWAS. And I believe that they don't see anything they're benefiting. And that's why they call the bluff when they impose all the sanctions and all of that. So, it's neither here nor there for ECOWAS.
All right. Okay, so for these countries now ruled by military juntas, what do you suggest engagements might or should be with the bloc from this point? Is it the acceptance of military coup leaders legitimizing the regime, or probably a room for further negotiations at reestablishing democratic systems and strengthening diplomatic ties?
Well, everybody knows that the military juntas will definitely call for elections when they believe that they have achieved the reason why they took over government in the first place. They will do that. But I mean, if you look at it again, it simply shows that ECOWAS has accepted them. Whether you're going to negotiate further with them, that is immaterial. But the main thing is that you have accepted them. They are military rulers. They will attend your meetings. They will listen to, they will do whatever they're supposed to do. So it's acceptance in one way. It's also another way for them to open up negotiations. But you cannot force a country to decide how they want to rule their people. It's not proper. You do not do that. So I think that is the message they are also passing. If their people are happy with having military leaders, who is ECOWAS to come and start dictating to them who should rule them? After all, they have not been dictating to ECOWAS member state presidents who have in so many ways acted even more dictatorial than the military juntas.
All right, Francis Chilaka, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We move on the news now, telling you that Nigeria's Ministry of Special Duties and Inter-governmental Affairs has unveiled a 5-year strategic plan aimed at fostering grassroots development and policy implementation for the benefit of the citizens. The minister, while unveiling the strategic document in the nation's capital, Abuja, says that the plan will focus on job creation, innovation, economic growth, social development and sustainability, particularly among youths and vulnerable persons. He expressed hope that through the roadmap, the ministry will improve its responsibility to monitor, evaluate and certify the payment of government projects that will impact citizens, especially those at the grassroots.
This plan is not just a document, it is a proof of our dedication to fulfilling the aspiration of our citizens. And this sum of responsibility is the task that I fed a special assignment as mandated by the President. We understand that to achieve our objective, we must act with efficiency, accountability, and transparency. This plan provides a clear direction, yet remain flexible.
The plan will be operationalized annually by providing a detailed roadmap for implementation, outlining responsible departments, agencies, specific activities, timeframes, cost, key performance indicators, KPIs, and expected impact to enable the ministry contribute to the vision for a better Nigeria.
Let's also tell you that the debate over Nigeria's 2024 budget continues to escalate as Seun Onibide, co-founder of Civic Group Budget, weighs in on the issue, echoing claims made by Senator Abdul Ningi regarding the lack of detailed project allocations. During an interview, Onibide affirmed Ningi's assertion that there were no detailed project allocations for approximately 3.7 trillion naira of the 28.78 trillion naira 2024 Appropriation Act. Addressing concerns raised by Senator Ningi about Nigeria running two concurrent budgets, Onibide clarified that while certain budget items like statutory transfers historically lack breakdowns, it doesn't imply the existence of separate budgets. He underscored the need for clarity regarding capital projects and expenditures by the federal government. He also emphasized the importance of a comprehensive breakdown of the budget to ensure transparency and accountability. To help us further give a perspective to this, I'm joined by a finance economy analyst, Izu Uwaoma. Thank you so much for joining us on the news.
How are you doing today?
Very good. Now, we have all followed the drama at the Senate from the start leading up to the suspension of the whistleblower, that is Senator Abdul Ningi. What would you say are the key issues to be concerned about?
Okay, so first thing first, I think if I'll sum this up in one word, it will be interests. It will be interest. Politics anywhere in the world has always been a game of interest, but there is supposed to be a threshold of acceptable interest. It's a battle of interest between regions and interest between self. So self-interest in the middle of that. I mean, it's not in a game of good versus bad, in my own opinion. It's interest. Business and politics in Nigeria is like dinner time. You're either on the table or you're on the menu. So clearly, it looks like the Senate right now has some people on the table and there's some people on the menu. If you're on the table, you're the one eating. And if you're on the menu, you're the one that they are eating. So I think some people who used to be on the table have moved to being on the menu, both on a regional level, right? And I think that's a fundamental challenge. However, I also think that there was a breach of privilege. Management Principles 101 reminds us of what you call hierarchy. Don't talk to the big boss, you talk to the small boss. Don't talk to the public until you dealt with the issues privately. So maybe there was too much, it was a bit too forward, right, in my own opinion, for that. But then, you can tell the level of personal disgruntledness that will lead someone to go into a national, another country's national broadcasting to lay his claim. And we don't know what the aim was supposed to be at that. But it also sort of shows you the organized chaos in the Senate and the lack of leadership and order. In the end, it's self-sabotage and the own goal to the parliament, which is supposed to be one of the most intellectual arm of the government. Sadly, it's not. It's almost looking like a joke at this point.
For you, it was a bit too forward, and clearly, as we've seen, it has led to his suspension. So would you have subscribed to an independent body to carry out the probe instead of the Senate being a party to the issue? Was it fair and credible in terms of the process, culminating to where there was an allegation up to the point where it was dismissed?
No, first thing first, I think the right thing whenever there's an issue is you create separation first. Whether it's marriage, you create separation. Whether it's in the Senate, you create separation, business, you create separation. Someone has a case to answer and then is asked steps aside temporarily. So I think that decision is the right decision, right? But then again, moving on, is the Senate cannot be a judge and a jury in their own case, right? And also be the audience and everything else. Clearly, there's a accusation, right? And that accusation affects the Senate itself, so they cannot be the judge and the jury. So clearly, there has to be a need for an independent body or independent auditor or researcher, whatever it is. But the problem with that is how independent can that person be, since we know how the country works. And don't forget that practitioners will always be smarter than regulators in Nigeria in any field. What I would suggest is, yes, there's a need for an independent review that does have them in the Senate, provided that person does not compromise. I would even want to say that there has to be an international review team. And the reason for that is same thing that happens in elections. You have what you call international observers, not necessarily because you want to question your sovereignty as a country, but because you want people who don't have deep lining in terms of compromise because they have something to gain, right? They're literally not stakeholders internally. And that's what I think has to happen next. But we all know this is a charade. It's like a chess game. This time you're not even looking at checkmates, you're looking at grandstanding. There's a lot of grandstanding. I don't see this happening. The word budget padding has been in our vocabularies for as long as 1999, from the times of the first the Obasanjo's dispensation. So budget padding is something that we have become so used to. We are sort of dealing with learned helplessness here. You know, we're so used to things being bad that we normalize it. I'm sure nothing will come out of this, honestly. And it's so sad because in the end, there's only one victim, and that's the Nigerian people.
Yes, so that is the bone of contention for me, because when we talk about normalization of situations like this, we may begin to start asking ourselves if that should be what should obtain. A lot of people have actually even trivialized the matter, and whether or not the Senate in its majesty had decided to go the routes they've taken. The bottom line is budget has come out to corroborate the claim that about 3.7 trillion naira has no basis in terms of project allocation. And this is the thing, budget padding has gone on since 2016, according to what I know. And we also need to ask the question, if that is right, because if that had gone on for years without it coming to light or it being attended to, remember that during the last, that is the 9th Senate, this issue came up until it was buried. If it's not constitutionally backed, why is it that there's no due diligence or something being done to critically look at this matter and deal with it, because it's Nigeria's money being fizzled away?
Yeah, but remember the people who are supposed to regulate, also the practitioners. Who polices the Senate? I think that's a question to ask, one. But I don't want to be technical. If you look at the concept of budget padding, in the concept of budget in itself, whether it's macroeconomics, whether it's corporate finance or it's accounting, when you have cost elements in your budget, right, especially in a very uncertain economy as Nigeria, right, with inflation and all that, right, there's something you want to put that is called the contingency reserve, right, where, okay, maybe your total budget is, say, 25 trillion, and you want to put a contingency reserve of, say, let me say 2%, right, 10% or whatever, say 10%, right? Now, what you find out is that it's not abnormal, actually not abnormal to slightly have a margin, right, that is not accounted for in the cost element tangibly, right? What the problem is what that thing is being used for, and if people were officially told, especially the key stakeholders. So naturally, it's for your business, and you were to go to market and then 20 billion, and then you got 22 billion, you're supposed to declare. And then if at the end of, because you put that uncertainty around forex, uncertainty around other things that might go wrong. But if that money is not used, it's not your money, you're supposed to return it back to the system and say, this is my contingency reserve, it was not used. But we know that never happens, right? We never go back to return money, right? So what Sheon Onibide said was totally in order. There is a time where you can have, there's a possibility where you can have money that is in a budget that is not specifically tied or accounted to for anything, but it has to have a name, right? So in the case I've called it a contingency reserve, what you call it in project management, there has to be a name for it, and people need to declare and know that that's what it's for. But for you to go behind, and if that's what the claim is, then that's a real claim, right? And I'm also worried with the fact that the statement that some senators got more money than others based on the seniority level. I don't even understand what that means. And we're not sharing family property with the first son has have more money. How do you give people more money based on how long they stay in the Senate as against how big their other metrics, like how big their constituency is, how much need their constituency are in need of, and even sometimes affirmative action, who are the ones that are more disadvantaged. So when you look at that, you know that it's really in Nigerian terms, a paraport type government. And that even brings us to another conversation. But in the end, right, contingency reserve is a thing. The problem is how it is being propagated and how it's being executed.
Yeah. So, well, some people might consider it as a family money. It's just that probably some people are more family than others. Izu Uwama, thank you so much for talking to us. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has said Anambra State government was not a defendant in the trial of the former governor, Willie Obiano, saying that the government's appeal on the matter was inconsequential. Obiano had, in a motion dated March 3, disclosed that the Anambra State government has filed an appeal challenging the authority of the EFCC to investigate and try him. The ex-Anambra governor also urged the court to quash the charges against him, adding that the court lacked the requisite jurisdiction to entertain issues on accountability for security votes funds. Obiano, who was arraigned on January 24, is standing trial on 9 charges bordering on alleged 4 billion naira theft. The Anti-Corruption Agency also said the charges and evidence presented against him establish a prima facie case against Obiano. Now, President Bola Tinubu has sworn in 17 federal commissioners of the National Population Commission, which he nominated last November. The 17 new and returning commissioners took the oath of office in 3 batches of 6 and 5 on Wednesday afternoon at the council chamber of the Aso Rock Villa in Abuja. On November 8, 2023, President Tinubu appointed 20 federal commissioners to the NPC, none of whom were appointed for a second term in office. A month later, on December 12, he forwarded the names of 19 of the 20 nominees to the Senate for confirmation. In the meantime, the federal government has indefinitely postponed the highly anticipated launch of the Nigerian Students' Loan Scheme in a surprising turn of events. The Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, Akintunde Sawyer, revealed these developments during an interview, sending shockwaves across the education sector. Originally slated to commence between September and October 2023, after President Bola Tinubu signed a bill in June 2023, which proposed interest-free loans to higher education, the launch has faced multiple delays. President Tinubu, while addressing leaders of the National Association of Nigerian Students, had outlined plans for the scheme's commencement in January 2024, incorporating additional features like vocational studies. However, few hours before the scheduled launch, Sawyer disclosed that the program's rollout was postponed due to necessary corrections being made. Now, Nigeria's First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, has emphasized the importance of providing opportunities to all girls to pursue their education, regardless of their past circumstances. Speaking at the commissioning ceremony of the newly constructed alternative high school for girls in Bauchi State, Senator Tinubu highlighted the need to address the various challenges that may hinder girls' education, such as early marriage, pregnancy, and lack of financial support. She underscored the importance of the alternative high school for girls as a platform for girls to overcome obstacles and pursue their aspirations. In addition to the educational initiative, Senator Tinubu inaugurated the Zainab Bukachua ICT Center, named after the first female president of the Court of Appeal. Away from that, tension between Heineken Lokpobiri, Nigeria's Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, who also doubles as the chairman of the Governing Council of the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, and the Executive Secretary of the board, Felix Odbe, is heating up with the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, NCDMB branch, shutting down operations. In a letter to Odbe on Monday, March 11, signed by the chairman, Benson Inife, Secretary Simeon Isiekwe, and Industrial Relations Yagi James, served the notice that they would be proceeding on strike over the seeming impasse between Odbe and Lokpobiri. The union said its indefinite strike will continue pending the resolution of the issue surrounding the redeployment of the staff. To discuss this further, I'm joined by Team Lead Platforms Africa, Adeola Yusuf. Thank you so much for joining us on the news.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure. Good evening.
So it's quite concerning and disturbing for this particular situation to happen, looking at the sensitivity of the sector in question. So how might the ongoing strike action by Pengasin at the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board impact Nigeria's overall economic productivity?
Okay, definitely everyone knows that, staff or employees are the fluid or the fuel through which, the fabrics of every organization is being, run. There is no way an organized labor of Pengasan status will go on strike and it won't affect the smooth running. But it's rather unfortunate that NCDMB, Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, that has been in existence for about 14 years. By April, it's going to be 14 years, and has been running smoothly. I will get to this level. As we speak now, about 10 countries in Africa, have shown interest to use the template to learn from Nigeria, particularly the NCDMB, how the country has been running, its local content. Everyone knows that, this is so rare, so peculiar, and it's something that Nigeria has been celebrating. So now having this kind of a story is rather so unfortunate, and we don't expect this to last longer. It's important that the president of the country, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that has been trying his best, in ensuring reforms, sincere reforms in the oil and gas sector, will not allow this, star boy of the oil industry, which is the NCDMB, to be affected by, this brouhaha. It's important, if you allow me to, lay background of this for our viewers, so that everyone will understand why it's very, very important for the president to intervene as quickly as possible in this.
Okay, so when we will look at the issue itself, it has to do with redeployment and appointments into some offices, and we have a chairman who had ratified those moves, and an executive secretary is coming out to say no, that cannot be. So when we have power tussle within a very sensitive board or an organ like that, what do you think that means? Discordant tunes playing up. Don't you think at this point we should have had these parties come to the table as gentlemen to look at these issues and have it resolved without it spiraling into an industrial action?
Okay, thank you so much. It's important at this moment, their juncture, to lay background, just like I said earlier, for viewers to be able to understand clearly what happened. This is not a court of competent jurisdiction. It's not a court of law, so to say. But what we just need to do is to lay to bear, facts available. Like I said earlier, by April this year, NCDMB is going to be 14 years, and it has been running smoothly before this scenario that that is playing out. Remember that we have been having ministers of petroleum resources, substantive minister and minister of petroleum resources, state of petroleum resources, since 14 years ago. That have been running. There has been the chairman governing council of the NCDMB, and we have not heard of this case before. Now, what is causing this issue is the section 71. Section 72, 73, and a part of 74 of the Nigerian Content Act. And what that section stipulates, is about the constitution of the governing council, the power, residing with the governing council, the power of the substantive executive secretary of the board. And what that, section, all the sections that I've highlighted, talked about, is that the executive secretary of NCDMB will be liable, will report to the board, governing council, right? Okay, so that has been in the sense, and they have been reporting all this while. So there is no power, according to those sections, there is no part of that section that said that the NCDMB executive secretary cannot, move staff. What happened was that when we have the governing council this time around, and we have the new executive secretary, he moved some staff, for instance, the director of finance, from the directorate of finance to another, directorate. He moved another staff to another place, and he's claimed to be the executive secretary and the chief executive officer of that board. So the chairman of the governing council is saying that he has to report to the governing council before he moves staff. But what is stated clearly in the the law of that board is that it is only when he wants to appoint directors or key staff that he needs to go to the governing council to get approval. But as the chief executive officer, I am wondering why he will not be able to move staff from one directorate to another, in as much as everything still stops on a stable, whether the organization performs so well or not. So whatever it can do to make sure that there is effectiveness and efficiency at that corporation is allowed to do that. But so that has been the case. So when they moved some staff, particularly the director of finance, the chairman of the governing council, who is the minister of state of petroleum resources, Lokwe, now wrote a letter saying that he has no power to do that. And a lot of people in the industry have been wondering, because this is not the first time we are having, a CEO of NCDMB moving staff. But the most important thing to us now is that for that 14 years, NCDMB that has been in existence, NCDMB has been performing so well to the credit of Nigeria. Everyone that has written Nigerian, health, in terms of management, in terms of so many other things, have been giving credit to Nigeria based on the way we have been running NCDMB. So this is the time everyone should rally around the NCDMB to ensure that the way the organization has been running to the credit of Nigerians, to be the pride of Nigeria, we should ensure that it continues on that pedestal. Because whether we like it or not, like I said earlier, over 10 countries, or about 10 countries, have significant interest in learning from Nigeria how we have been running this. So the president of the country cannot put his hands at this moment. I know he's someone that loves progress, and he understands politics too. Whatsoever politics that they want to inject into this oil and gas, we don't want it. Because whether we like it or not, particularly the NCDMB, there shouldn't be politics. The minister has the interest of Nigeria at his heart. The executive secretary of NCDMB has the interest of Nigeria at his heart. Every one of them should come together to make sure that this thing is resolved as quickly as possible.
Okay, Adiola Yusuf, thank you so much for helping us to understand this better. We appreciate your contribution.
My pleasure always. Thank you for having me.
All right. Now, in furtherance of the celebration of Women's History Month, advocates and health experts have continued a course to raise awareness about women's health-related issues. Infertility and reproductive health are on the front burner of awareness programs targeted at women's health. Now, in this report, News Central's Adishawo Dushoga explores why.
In Africa, childbearing is considered one of the most important events in a family, as motherhood confers social status on women, and when a family is without a child, there are undeniable issues. Infertility, or rather reproductive health crisis, is growing among African women, and this has been tied to different factors such as PCOS, fibroid, ovarian cyst, pelvic inflammation disease, endometriosis, and hormonal imbalance, among others. Polycystic ovary syndrome, otherwise known as PCOS, is the most common gynecological endocrine disorder in Africa, affecting women of reproductive age. Nzala Zamani is a 30-year-old epidemiologist who has been living with PCOS for more than 10 years.
We are in Africa, and one of the main things that could make you an object of ridicule is from the fact that you cannot give birth to children. So one of the main notions about PCOS that a lot of people know is the fertility aspect. Meanwhile, the fertility aspect is just one of plenty, because as a woman with PCOS, you can get down with other disease conditions.
While infertility is now becoming a common challenge for African women, with a growing community of women who are trying to conceive, Dr. Tokpe Akinola, a gynecologist based in Lagos, Nigeria, says the major cause of different types of infertility in women is yet to be diagnosed.
No one up to now has been able to prove the exact cause of endometriosis. It's called, there's all called theories of endometriosis, different theories. of retrograde menstruation theory, metaplasia, other medical jargons. People are trying to find out what causes endometriosis.
He also called for the need to increase diagnosis of male infertility, to increase awareness and reduce societal myths.
Male infertility now is approaching as high as 40%, especially even in urban cities. A man may not have a reason to have a sperm analysis collected all through your life until you are trying to get somebody pregnant, you're not getting pregnant.
One of the remarkable breakthroughs in infertility is the introduction of in vitro fertilization, also known as IVF, which presented itself as a cure-all solution, recording so many success stories. However, gynecologists like Dr. Akinola have said processes like IVF are also bound to fail for patients with womb-related health challenges. In Lagos for News Central, Adeshawa Odushoga.
To security matters now, gunmen on Tuesday launched a brazen attack on Kaduna State's Kajuru district, abducting numerous individuals, adding to the escalating insecurity gripping the region. The abduction spree started a few days after the shocking kidnap of over 250 pupils from a school in the same vicinity, intensifying concerns over the safety and security of residents. As security forces continue their efforts to locate the missing pupils from Kuraga village, reports emerged of gunmen descending upon the village in the early hours of Tuesday. State lawmaker Usman Danlami Stingo revealed in an interview that the assailants seized 32 women and 29 men in a raid. These successive large-scale abductions pose a significant challenge to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration, which has pledged to address insecurity while grappling with economic hardships and striving to attract investment to Nigeria. In neighboring Niger Republic, a United States general and high-ranking official have embarked on a crucial visit to the West African country, aiming to engage with the military junta following the ousting of elected leader Mohamed Bazoum. The delegation's mission, spearheaded by General Michael Langley of U.S. Africa Command, marks a renewed effort to establish contact after the coup and subsequent political upheaval in Niger. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken's previous visit to Niger in March 2023 underscored the nation's growing significance as a strategic partner for the United Nations and the United States, including its European allies in the Sahel region. However, recent events, including successive coups in neighboring Mali and Burkina Faso, have reshaped the geopolitical landscape, prompting the need for swift diplomatic engagement. We now head to the Rainbow Nation, where South African police authorities have apprehended a suspect in connection with the tragic murder of 3 Egyptian Coptic Orthodox monks within a church. In a statement released by the South African Police Service on Wednesday, it was confirmed that a 35-year-old man had been taken into custody. Is slated to appear before the Cullinan Magistrates Court on March 14, 2024. The gruesome incident unfolded in Cullinan, located 50 kilometers northeast of Pretoria, where the monks met a tragic end. According to the police, 3 victims succumbed to stab wounds, while a 4th managed to escape after being struck by an iron rod. The motive behind Tuesday's fatal stabbings remain shrouded in mystery, leaving communities shaken and seeking answers. In the meantime, the mother of a missing 6-year-old girl charged with trafficking and kidnapping has abandoned a plea for bail, sending shockwaves through South Africa. Tensions ran high outside the Vredenburg court as police deployed tear gas and stun grenades to disperse protesters amidst the latest developments in the case of Jocelyn Rachelyn Smith's disappearance. Raquel Smith, the 33-year-old mother, was arrested last week along with 3 others, including her boyfriend, amid allegations of involvement in the trafficking of the missing girl. Jocelyn has been missing for nearly a month now, since vanishing in Saldanha Bay, a fishing town north of Cape Town. Despite extensive search efforts and widespread public outcry, she remains unaccounted for. The case underscores the troubling trend of child abduction in South Africa, where crime rates are among the highest globally. And I'll tell you that Cameroon's government has branded 2 political coalition groups as having an illegal character and want them to suspend their activities 18 months ahead of a presidential election. International NGOs accuse the regime of President Paul Biya, who has ruled with an iron fist for more than 41 years, of systematically suppressing opposition. Territorial Administration Minister Paul Tanga Nji, in a statement, said the Political Alliance for Change and the Alliance for Political Transition in Cameroon are not political parties under the law. The statement also expressed concern over pseudo-associations ahead of the 2025 presidential election. The APC dismissed what it called curious threats in a statement which indicates panic. From other continents, President Vladimir Putin has warned the West that Russia is technically ready for nuclear war and that if the U.S. sends troops to Ukraine, it would be considered a significant escalation of the conflict. Putin, speaking on Wednesday, just days before a March 15 to 17 election, which is certain to give him another 6 years in power, said the nuclear war scenario was not rushing up and he saw no need for the use of nuclear weapons in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine has triggered the deepest crisis in Russia's relations with the West since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, and Putin has warned several times that the West risks provoking a nuclear war if it sends troops to fight in Ukraine.
С военно-технической точки зрения мы, конечно, готовы. Они у нас постоянно находятся в состоянии боевой готовности. Это первое. А второе, и это тоже вообще признанная вещь, наша триада, ядерная триада, она является более современной, чем любая другая триада. Таких триад только вот у нас, да, американцев, на самом деле. И мы здесь продвинулись гораздо больше.
In business, for years now, the Apapa axis of Lagos gained notoriety for its traffic gridlock, which had crippled commercial activities in the area and at the Lagos ports. The gridlock was largely due to bad roads and the endless queues of trailers waiting to lift containers at the ports. In a bid to address this, in February 2021, the Nigeria Ports Authority launched the electronic call-up system for trucks looking to access the ports in Lagos. The electronic call-up system, managed by the Truck Transit Park Limited, is an app through which truckers are expected to book turns to enter the ports. The introduction of the system was greeted with widespread optimism, but how has the new call-up system fared since? Big question. In sports, UEFA has released full details of its new format for its competition, which will see 36 teams compete in a single league, replacing the existing group stage. Teams will play 8 matches against opponents from different ports, with 4 games at home and 4 being played away. In a change to the current process, the last 16 draw will be seeded based on where the clubs finished in the league table. However, the top 2 seeds will be kept apart by being put on opposite sides of the draw. Therefore, the top 4 seeds cannot meet each other until the semi-finals, in a move UEFA hope will drive clubs to finish as high as possible in the table rather than settle for a top 8 spot. And that's all at this hour, but before we go, we'll quickly take a look at some of our major stories. Nigeria reopens land and air borders with the Republic of Niger. Budget confirms no detailed project allocations for 3.7 trillion naira in Nigeria's 2024 budgets. And finally, we told you that South Africa police arrest suspect after Coptic monks killing. You can send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number and email on your screen. While you do that, follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can equally watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekan Onabanjo.